Hello, welcome to today's topic. I'm really excited to actually share with you today, and I have to make a confession before we start. And that confession is that I am kind of teaching you as a past sufferer of this issue of time management. I actually find it very comical in some ways because I bought a new journal back in I guess it was December, and I got this journal and I absolutely love this journal. But the funny thing is that in this journal, on the bottom left of every single page of this journal, on every single day, it has this question. It's the question that when I was, a young mother would strike the fear into my heart beyond anything. And it would often come from my children. And the question was, what is for dinner? And the reason why that question struck fear into my heart is because I wasn't prepared. And so it would be like 4 o'clock and I'd be then confronted with this question, what's for dinner? And I hadn't put thought into it. I hadn't even, defrosted anything. I hadn't even the ingredients that I needed, and I was scrambling and I was frustrated, and I absolutely hated that question. So I want to kind of share with you a little bit about my journey on this issue of time management. And I'm hoping that you're going to not only learn from my past experience to be able to produce better in your life, but also learn from some of the principles that I'm going to share with you today. So I'm going to tell you right from the beginning that even though I am a proponent of time management, I am not what I consider a time management Nazi. And I think that this kind of comes back to the whole name of this group, which is to make your mark, how each of us has tools, the exact same tools, the exact same canvas, and so on. But how we apply those tools is going to look very different for each of us, right? And so one of the things that I've learned along the way in my journey is that if I overstructure my day, it actually produces a negative effect in me. I'm not at my best. I'm at my best when I have sufficient structure, but sufficient free time that I can then create and do what I need to do in at the moment, because sometimes I can be very spontaneous. So I need this really healthy balance between a structured day and free time in my day. And if I have too much structure, I don't do well. If I have too much free time, I don't do well. So I do really well having a balance of both. Now, you're going to have to find your own groove and how you fit best in that kind of category. But I'm going to tell you something else. I have heard a lot of different time management sessions over the past couple of years, and there seems to be a trend to talk about how it is a really great thing for time management to have a lot of notifications showing on your phone. So for example, you get that little red dot on your phone on top of your emails, and it will tell you how many new email messages that you have that are unread, or you get the same thing in Facebook Messenger or in text and so on. And I've heard over and over again through time management talks that the best thing to do is to be okay with seeing, 755 is the number inside of that, unread email notification. And I've heard it several times, and every time I hear it, I have the same response, which is like, no way. And so I want you to know that not everybody has the same approach to time management. I don't like unread email messages. I feel like it's kind of the same as, some people who like to drive until the tank gets completely empty and then they fill it up, and other people like to keep the tank full because they don't like the stress of having to fill the tank when it's close to empty and then finding a place to put the gas in. So they just constantly keep gas in and keep it full. And my philosophy is that when it comes to checking messages, I would much rather deal with whatever I can deal with right away and know that it's cleared from my mind. If there's things that I don't want to deal with, I have a different way of sorting that out and dealing with it later. But to have 755 unread email messages would just not do well for my soul. And so I want you to know that, you have freedom within the principles that we're going to share today to kind of explore how you can manage time best to be most in line with your strengths with your personality, with what you know works for you. But the key principle to remember is that time is a commodity, and it's really important that we do well with this amazing commodity, this gift that we're given, and that we find as we go through our entrepreneurship journey, as our building our business journey, we find a groove that we can get into where we just know what to do with our time, that we're wise with our money and we're wise with our time. Okay, so I'm going to start by sharing my screen because I got a presentation I'm going to show you. Sorry, I don't want to do that. That is not what I wanted to do. I want to share my screen, so I'm going to grab that now. And as I'm going through these slides, I'm going to be kind of flipping in and out because I have a video that I want to show you as well. But feel free to make notes if it's useful to you, or don't if it's not. So I want to start by saying that, when I'm talking about time management and scheduling, I'm really talking about how to make the most out of our lives, right? So I am a firm believer that we have this incredible ability to create. So every single day that is given to us is a gift that we can then use to create something pretty spectacular. But alternatively, we can create something that's not so spectacular and potentially very negative. And so we definitely want to be, thinking about how are we using our time and being very, very intentional about how we're using our time. Again, not that we can't ever have downtime, but I almost feel like our downtime needs to be scheduled as well. So take a look at some of these principles that we're going to go through together. So the first thing, I like to ground everything into truth. And I love this truth from Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 and 16. And it says, look carefully how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. And the idea there is not that every single day is coated with evil, but the idea is that, if we have time that's running rampant, if we have time that's not being focused and not being used wisely, there is a tendency toward our time being used in a not so helpful way, in a way that is not productive, which could then be categorized as evil. And we only need to see this with teenagers that have nothing to do. They tend to get themselves in trouble. And I don't think adults are a whole lot different. So let's keep our eyes up. Let's keep focused. Let's get our inspiration from above when we're looking at how we're going to use our time. Okay, so why do you need a daily plan? Well, successful planning determines the quality of people that you attract into your life. And if you tend to be the person that's just hanging around, wasting time, you're probably going to be attracting people who just hang around and waste time. And you are going to be able to, if you do plan, you're going to be able to attract people who are quality people and who know how to make the most out of their time, their money, and their talents. The ability that you will have to support more people with less time is going to be determined by how well you plan. And if you're building a direct sales business, you need to be able to support a lot of people, right? There's my organization is still pretty small, somewhere in the area of 25,000 people, but there are people in my business who have 1 million people on their organization. You can only imagine that as you support this, number of people, you have to become very effective with how you use your time. If I gave everyone equal access to me, then I would have no time. I love this quote on the left-hand side: spectacular achievement is always preceded by unspectacular preparation. And for this, I love to use the example of, like Tessa Virtue, and Scott, I forget his last name, but maybe it's Scott Virtue. And anyways, Tessa and Scott, these incredible ice skaters, right? And they get on the ice rink, and for 3 minutes, it is absolute perfection. It is 3 minutes where you just cannot look away from the screen or look away from the ice if you're there in person. And there is such beauty in what they create in that 3 minutes. But that 3 minutes didn't just take them 3 minutes to create, right? That 3 minutes actually took them a lifetime of investing into their skill and their art of figure skating so that they could spend that 3 minutes and wow the world. So to get that spectacular achievement, it was preceded by a lot of unspectacular preparation, a lot of waking up very early in the morning, a lot of, hours and hours on the ice, a lot of falls, a lot of injuries, and that was what created the spectacular achievement later on. And so remember that how you use your day each and every day is not just about that day, but it's about what you're creating for your future and that spectacular achievement that you want to get at one point. So time management is really a misnomer, says Stephen Covey, because the challenge isn't to manage time, but to manage ourselves. And we know that really because time is a fixed thing. We can't just change it. We can't just add to it. But what we can do is manage ourselves so that we have this gift of time most effectively used in our lives. And so we're really talking about self-management when we're talking about time management. And as we go through a lot of the principles, you're going to understand that to the extent that you have been using time poorly, it's probably because you have some limiting beliefs or you have some things in your character that still need to be sorted out. And so just know that there's hope. You can totally change that, but it is going to be about getting a hold of what's happening inside of yourself, right? Okay, so here's a kind of scenario to think about. So imagine that you have a bank that credits your account every morning with $86,400. Shopping. That would be a lot of fun. So $86,400 every single day is what gets deposited into your account every morning. Okay. It carries over no balance from day to day. And every morning it deletes whatever part you didn't use during the previous day. That would be a lot of shopping you would have to do every day, right? And so you don't get to carry over any of the balance, but you have $86,400 to use on that day. Well, each of us has such a bank, and the name is time. So that's how many seconds or minutes are in the day. I have to remember my calculation, but that's how much time we have, and how we use that time is of absolute importance, right? And so when we start to see, the value of money and what would we do with that much money every day, and how we would have to be really effective at money management in order to be able to manage that kind of money every day, we realize that we have to be really diligent about our time. I like this kind of comparison because what we see here on the left-hand side is a compass, and on the right-hand side, we see our clock. And we can struggle when there is a gap between our compass and our clock. Well, what do each of these things represent? Our compass are our values, things that we really feel are important, the place we want to go in this world, the heartfelt things, the family priorities, the priorities for our spiritual life, priorities for our physical life. So that is our compass, the underlying values. And the clock is what we actually have to do in a day. So that could be anything from chores to just your daily activities, and potentially the time that you spend watching TV and so on. So your goal is to make sure that what you do, the clock, actually contributes directly to what's most important, which is your compass. When there's a discrepancy between the clock and the compass, then we have a problem. But when these are working in alignment, then we have magic, right? That's where the power happens. So the flow of compass living looks like this. First of all, connect to your mission and vision. If you have not yet done this, you really need to spend time figuring out what is most important to you. So what are the things that you value? What is it that you ultimately want to be about and be remembered for? What's your legacy, right? That's critical. Be clear on your role and responsibilities. So what commitments must you make? So maybe you have a goal to be, a world champion basketball player, but the reality is that you're a mom or a dad and you still have responsibilities at home, and you still have to feed your children. Yes, that is a priority. And you still have to, keep other commitments that you might have. So be clear on your roles and responsibilities as you're connecting to your vision, and then identify your goals. So you really ought to be having kind of short-term and long-term goals. The short-term would be the 30 days, and potentially even 6 months can be more of a short-term goal. And then we have 2 years and 5-year goals. Where do you want to be? And if you want to be at that place in that next period of time, what do you need to do now in order to get there? And you've heard me probably, if you've been around me any length of time, refer to Jordan Peterson's example or description of time management. And he said, it's really important to understand where you want to get to. You need to have that goal, and you need to say, what do I need to do today to get to that place in the future where I need to be? But he also says, the opposite should also happen. Not only do we want to see where do we want to be, but what is the absolute worst version of our future that we can think about? Like what would be just awful as a picture for the future? We need to think about that too, he says, because then we need to look at what are we doing today to feed into that future, and how can we get rid of that, right? So identifying our goals and then understanding what are we going to do to get to that place. Then we're going to break that down into a weekly system. So we need to have a plan for our week. Now, in my business, for example, I have my team members create their rank goal for the month. If their rank goal is a rank of silver, for example, and they need 3,000 PV of more volume to get to that rank, and they need it in certain places, well, then they have to strategize. They have to think about how many classes is that going to take, and to get that many classes, how many people are they going to have to contact, and how many one-on-one appointments are they going to have to do. So they need to break it down very practically from the overall goal into what are the things that need to be done. And then we need to fit that in, those things that need to be done. We need to fit them in on a weekly basis. And on a weekly basis, we go back and reevaluate. How did we do with our goals this past week? How are we doing with our ultimate goal of silver in this case? And how do we reorganize my schedule for the next coming week so that I can be closer to that place where I want to be? Because sometimes we're a little further away, sometimes we're a little closer, and we can rework our schedule based on that. But we definitely want to have some kind of system that we're following on a weekly basis. And then we evaluate, like I just said, we're going to look at how did we do on one week, and that will become our foundation for the following week. I want you to think about this. If you do nothing different, will you be happy with everything being the same way it is right now, 5 years, 10 years, or 25 years from now? Think about that. If nothing else changed and you had your exact same life that you have right now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 25 years from now, will you be satisfied with that? Will you be happy with that? Will you feel like you've accomplished what you want to accomplish? And if not, you need to make the changes today, because the changes are not going to come at some point in the future. You need to make the change today. Why wait until tomorrow, right? Do it today. Time is your greatest currency. People wait all week for Friday, all year for summer, and then all their life for happiness. Don't do that. Make your happiness today. Make your goal setting and your action steps today. Okay, so that has to happen. The law of priorities. Leaders never advance to a point where they don't need to prioritize anymore. So one of the failings I've seen in my business is people make it to my rank of presidential diamond, for example, and then they think, oh, great, now I'm making all this money and I can go to Tahiti and I can go on all these trips. And they feel like, well, they get to this point where they don't need to prioritize their time. And that's a huge failing, because if I want to continue to be successful, if I want to continue to be productive with my life, I need to always prioritize. It doesn't mean I can't afford myself some downtime now that I've achieved a level of success, but it does mean I still need to be thinking about what are my priorities, and how can I use my time toward those things. We've talked about this in one of our daily bites, that busyness does not equal productivity. Activity is not necessarily accomplishment. Prioritizing requires leaders to continually think ahead, to know what's important, and to see how everything relates to the overall vision, right? 20% effort, 80% results is that next picture, and that's the Pareto principle. If you focus your attention on the activities that rank in the top 20% in terms of importance, you'll have an 80% return on your effort. For example, if you have 100 customers, the top 20 will provide you 80% of your business, so focus on them. It's often the same with our leaders. If we have a team of leaders, sometimes what we do is we put our effort into the ones that are failing, and really we need to kind of just release those failing leaders and put our focus and effort onto leaders that are succeeding, because they're going to give 80% of the results. And that's for sure. As I look across my organization, it's 100% true. So we want to focus our effort and energy on those who are producing. And then it doesn't mean that the other 80% of the people who are not doing so well, it doesn't mean that they don't get any of us, but they get what Deb Erickson would call, they get the soup, right? They get the marinating effect of being part of your organization, of part of all your training programs, etc. But they don't necessarily get your one-on-one attention. That needs to go to the ones who are actually being productive. 3 R's to think about: requirement, return, and reward. You have to order your lives according to these 3 questions. And the first one is, what is required? Of course, you have priorities that have to begin with what's required of us. So an example would be, what must I do, or what should I do that nobody else can do for me? And a great example would be my homeschooling. There's a lot of times when I've had people come in to help me with homeschooling, but at the end of the day, I need to ultimately be responsible for that. I don't want to offload that, because the whole point of me choosing to homeschool was so that I can have input and time with my son. So I don't, even though I could, offload that and put him in a private school or whatever, I don't want to. So that is something that I've chosen as being one of my priorities. If I'm doing something that's not necessary, I should eliminate it. And if I'm doing something that's necessary but not required of me personally, I need to delegate it. Okay, so there's lots of things then that I can delegate. So I don't want to delegate the training of my son, but I can delegate, gardening work. So I hire a gardener. I can delegate, some of the construction work that's happening in my home. That's what my husband's learning to do, because he's very good at construction and he can do it all, but he doesn't need to do it all. Okay, so what gives the greatest return? As a leader, you should be spending most of your time working in your areas of your greatest strength. Ideally, leaders should get out of their comfort zone, but stay in their strength zone. And what do I mean by out of their comfort zone, but stay in the strength zone? So as an example, I need to get out of my comfort zone, and I need to be willing to contact, spas or chiropractors or whatever. So I need to be willing to get out of my comfort zone and contact some of these people that I wouldn't normally be in contact with. I need to be willing, for example, to teach a class on something that I'm not entirely comfortable with the content on, realizing that, I can do it, so that's getting out of my comfort zone. But if I'm constantly staying in that zone where I don't feel my strengths are best used, then I'm being unproductive. And an example would be make intakes. I don't like make intakes. Let's just say that. A make intake is when someone would come to my home, they would use different materials and they would make things like lip balm and body butter. I can do it. I don't like to do it. And so I do it once in a while. I do it to serve my customers, but if I do that all the time, I am not using my time effectively. I'm not really building my business, and I'm certainly not contributing to the value of my life or the quality of my life, because I don't enjoy it. I'm not a crafty type person. So I'd much rather use my creativity in other ways than making a lip balm. So my rule of thumb is that if something can be done 80% as well by somebody else, I delegate it. So I have a personal assistant, and there's lots of times when I could do things faster and potentially better than she can do it. Same with some of the other tasks that I've delegated, but the reality is that I can't do everything, and it's not necessary for me to do everything. So even if it's done 80% as well by somebody else, I can delegate that. And then I have to be willing to step back and just say, you know what, that's okay. It's not necessarily how I would have done it, but it's okay. It's good. It's being done, and that's good. So that's important to keep in mind, is what gives you the greatest return. And then what brings the greatest reward? Life is too short not to do the things that you love. So your personal interests will energize you and keep you passionate, and passion provides the fuel in your life to keep you going. So there can be times when I have to choose between going swimming at the spa with my son, or staying and working on a presentation. And it's like, yeah, maybe I should be working on the presentation, but there are times when I can just say, you know what, I'm going to put that aside because this is going to give me a huge reward. It's going to fuel my creativity. It's going to fuel my energy, and I'll be able to bring that into my presentation afterwards. So those are some principles to keep in mind. 7 time management tips, and we're going to go over these in detail. And you can see what they are. We're going to go through them one by one. Okay, so the first one is that you can't do everything, but you can do anything. So you obviously can. You can learn all these different things that are possibilities for you to do, but you don't have to do everything. Examples of areas that you can seek help with: cleaning services, having a personal cook. I actually pay my daughter to cook for me. Having somebody that picks up meals or groceries, or getting somebody to deliver those things. Having a nanny or a babysitter so that you can have some time to work on your business. You can involve family. In my business, it's like preparing samples or preparing packages. So you can involve your family members into doing some things. Again, they may not do it as well as you would like, but they're being part of your business, and they are saving you some time. And then you can have a personal assistant or a virtual assistant. So whatever it is that you're looking to get help with, remember that you're going to always prioritize the things that you need to absolutely get done. So this time of year, I use the example of gardening. Gardening is a huge priority for me. It has to be done. You can't wait. There's, plants have to get in the ground. Soil needs to be prepared, that kind of thing. But I can't do it all myself, and I don't want to. So I hire somebody for a lot of the gardening in my home. And then I prioritize the gardening for what I have to do, which is I have a vegetable garden, and I'm the one that takes care of my vegetable garden. So my priorities will be focusing on that. And then the other things can be done by somebody else. So you need to think about each single day, what are your priorities for that day? And basically what you want to say is, at the end of the day, if you've done those things, those 3 things that are on your list, will you feel, when you put your head on the pillow, will you feel like, good, I feel very good about what I got done today. I feel like I've accomplished and I've been building into my future. If you're not going to feel that way, then you need to change your priorities, right? So your 3 priorities need to be something that you're going to feel good at the end of the day that you've got them done. And it's okay if somebody did some other stuff. Okay, what gets scheduled gets done. What you're seeing here is a picture of my journal. You can see bottom left-hand side, what's for dinner? Hate that question. I still don't like that question, I have to admit. But here's an example, because if it's in my schedule, I know I'm going to get it done. And the way that I divide my day timer is, you can see I have like specific appointments that I have to keep. So I've got those in my actual time slots. You're going to notice I even, slotted some time to go to the library, because I had made a commitment to my son that I would take him to the library. So I slotted that in so I didn't forget about it. I have at the bottom a checklist of things that I want to do on that day, which don't have to be slotted in at a specific time, but the things that I really want to make sure I get done. And then I have my prayer list. So this is how I order my days. And I actually start my day when if you would have heard me say that I have a morning routine. Part of my morning routine is praying into my day, and I actually hold this journal in my hand and I kind of go over my day. I pray into the different things that I need to get done, and I have a clear idea of what my day is going to look like, and I put intentionality into the different things of my day. So it's really important to have I actually like a physical journal. Some people like an online journal or an online day timer. That's fine. I don't. I just prefer to have something in my hands that I could bring into my quiet time without having to have a computer or a device in my quiet time. And remember that point on the bottom, that done is better than perfect. So I've really had to release a lot of the perfectionist tendencies that I have had in my life, because I realized that it was stopping me from doing things. So now my principle is, I like to use this saying, because it's kind of represents how I function a lot now, which is to cut twice and measure once. And what I mean by that is that if you're ever involved in sewing, my friend is a sewing instructor, she'll tell you that you're supposed to measure twice and cut once when you're kind of measuring fabric, right? Because you don't want to be wasting fabric. Well, you know, I've realized that for myself, I actually function best in the energy of I'll cut twice and I'll measure once, you know, so sometimes I just have to get right into it and just get something done. And if it's kind of half ASSED, it's okay. I can always fix it. You know, of course, there are really important things that have to be done well. Then maybe I'll measure twice and cut once. But for the most part, I cut twice and measure once and just, you know, rush into my day to get stuff done because that's better than perfect. Okay, for this, I want to show you a video. This is actually kind of a principle that was laid down by Stephen Covey. So look at me there. That's not what I want to show you. I'm going to stop my share so that I can share a different screen with you. Okay. Share screen. And this is a great little analogy of how we can use our time best. So I'm just going to hit play.
This is your life. It looks pretty full, doesn't it? That's because it is. It's full of all the things you'd be incomplete without. Love, family, food, water, health, your parents, your passions. With all of these things, you could have nothing else and still lead a full life. But even with all of this, you'll still have some space to fit more things. Smaller things. This is your job, your car, your house, money, things that are still important. But if you took them all away, your life would still be full. If you're watching this video, that means you're lucky enough to have at least some of these things. But if you're really lucky, and many of us are, you'll still have some space left over. These are the really small things. Watching a movie, playing a video game, sports, ice cream. Things that make your life that little bit nicer, but things that are really just trivial in the end. If you wanted, you could try to put these things first, wasting your time in front of the television or the computer, playing games, or whatever it might be. You could follow it up with the material things, money, cars, houses, clothes. But then when it comes time to try to fit in all the important things, you run out of space. Some things will have to be left out. And nobody wants that. So keep that in mind as you go through life. Put the really important things first, and then find space for the rest. If you run out, it really won't matter anyways. It's just the small stuff.
Okay, so that's a really great analogy, and kind of gets to the point that I wanted to share, which is, you know, really prioritizing the big stuff first. And let me just go over there. I'm hoping that you're able to see that video. I'm going to check it later. I'm going to put a link to that video so that you'll be able to look at it again for yourself later on. But that's kind of going over this principle of prioritizing the big important stuff first, and then everything else will fit in afterwards. And so, you know, you're going to have to decide for yourself, what are those golf balls? What are the really important stuff? But once you've decided that, you can't compromise. You really got to keep that as a priority in your life, and then let everything else fit in around it. Here's some ideas of things that could be priorities. Okay, so number 3 principle is to picture the outcome. You need to ask yourself, will it be worth it? If you complete these 2 to 3 tasks today, will I feel successful? So that's what we've talked about before. And how does it feel in my body to accomplish this task? What do I want to accomplish during this mentor call, as an example? So you have to picture the outcome. And I've often talked about this in the area of when you're doing a workshop. So when I'm teaching my team members, when they're going to go to teach a workshop somewhere, that they need to actually picture themselves in that workshop, and what do they want the outcome of that workshop to be? What do they want their people to walk away feeling? How do they want them to be empowered and excited? And so as you go into your day, you're picturing the outcome of your day as if it had already completed, and you're kind of then going to be using all of your energy to feed into that picture that you've got into your mind. That makes your day hugely different than if you just go into it and respond to that day. This principle is called Eat That Frog, and it comes from the book named Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And the goal here is to prioritize, to get things done that you need to get done first, like we've talked about, and usually to do the things that you don't like first, because once you do that and you get that out of the way, then you're going to find, because you have usually the most stamina, the most self-control, so to speak, at the beginning of the day. If you can put your energy into effort into getting those things done, and then letting the rest of your day unfold after that, with the things that you enjoy doing a little bit more, you'll probably find that you're not procrastinating as much. And so this book is a great reference to if you want to stop procrastinating. But I'm going to tell you that it's great to read about this. It's great to put into practice these principles. But if you find that you're still stuck in this area of procrastination, at the heart of procrastination is really self-sabotage. And so what you need to then understand is, why are you self-sabotaging? What is it that is causing you to want to undermine your own success? And believe it or not, we all tend to have these tendencies for different reasons. And so I would invite you to explore this idea of self-sabotage. If you go through some training with Deb Erickson in the I Can Institute, she's got one training called I Can Start, where she talks about these principles, like what is it that could be stopping you from actually starting, and keeping that momentum going. So yes, it's important to read these books, but it's also important to look at the underlying causes of what is causing you to procrastinate. Time your tasks. So what are you spending your time on? If you listen to Jordan Peterson, he says, if you're a young adult, then your time is worth like $50 an hour. Maybe they're not getting paid that, but really, considering all of the stuff that they have before them, all the possibility that they have to create with their lives, they have very valuable time. I consider my time to be worth more than $50 an hour. So if you consider that, and you're spending 4 hours a day, as an example, watching TV, you've just spent $200 watching TV. Would you spend $200 paying somebody else to watch TV for you? Probably not. So maybe you should be thinking about whether you should be spending your time doing that. That's 13 years over your lifetime if you're spending 4 hours a day. Think about, instead of what are you wasting your time, for example, on social media or on TV or all of these possible things that you could be then wasting that money basically on. Think about what would happen if you were to put that time into building your business or investing in your family or personal growth. Would you pay somebody $200 to help you for 4 hours to grow yourself? I think you probably would. Well, imagine if you took then that 4 hours instead of watching TV and you put it into personal growth and personal development books, and you grew yourself and you started making declarations and you started doing a morning routine and you did all of those things instead. Imagine how much different your life would be. And so think about how you would actually want to spend your time if you had to pay somebody to do what you are doing. I like this task. It's called the Pomodoro method of getting tasks completed. And it was developed in the 1980s. And the man who developed it figured that if you want to stay focused on a task, it's easier to do it for short bursts than it is to do it for an extended period of time. So as an example, my daughter has to write a lot of essays in university. And so instead of her maybe spending 5 hours writing an essay, if she were to break it down into 25-minute intervals, it would be more likely, although she's incredibly focused and likely would spend more than 5 hours getting her essay done. But for many people, it's hard to stay focused for that long of a period. And so the idea is you set up Pomodoro, and you can actually download a Pomodoro app. So it will time your tasks. And let's just say that your task is that you're working on a presentation. I'll give that example again. So you spend 25 minutes working on the presentation. When the Pomodoro rings, you get up, you take a 5-minute break, maybe grab a drink, maybe grab some water, maybe do some stretching, maybe just, go get a breath of fresh air. After 5 minutes, you come back and you work again for another 25 minutes. And then every 4 Pomodoros, so now 2 hours has gone by this point, then you take a longer break and maybe you spend a half an hour doing something like going for a walk or whatever. And the idea is that when you're doing this method, and you have to be undistracted for that 25 minutes. You can't be also checking social media and emails and so on. You need to really be focused, but the idea is that once you do that, you're going to be hugely successful. So that is a way that you can approach your tasks. And then, of course, you want to measure everything against your vision. This is the comparison between the compass and the clock. Do you find that you're constantly stuck building somebody else's dream life? That's not cool. That's often what employees do. And that's why I like to work for myself. And I think that's why we're all here, to learn how to become entrepreneurs so that we can build our own dreams and not somebody else's. Do you check your email or your messenger first thing in the morning, before you do anything else? Because that can totally shift your day, right? If you look at an email that's upsetting, or if you look at something that you need to get done, which draws you to the computer, and then you start spending 2 hours there and you miss your morning routine, it can really mess you up. And do you browse Facebook more than you post? If yes, then you're living life in response mode. You want to practice saying no to things until you check it against your vision. There's no point doing efficiently something that you should not be doing at all. So maybe you're really, really efficient at checking Facebook posts and you can scroll through, Instagram like a ninja, but is that really what is, building into your future? Is that really part of your vision? Things that matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. So really, really important principle. Okay, so the next thing, oops, it's stuck. Hang on. I'm going to stop my share because my PowerPoint is stuck for whatever reason. There we go. I can share again. Okay, I love this quote. Every day, the world will drag you by the hand, yelling, this is important, and this is important, and this is important. And you need to worry about this, and this, and this. And each day, it is up to you to yank your hand back, put it on your heart, and say, no, this is what's important. And so listening to your heart and going to the place where you need to go, as opposed to the place where everything in the world would want to drag you. Really, really important that you're not living in response mode. 7th principle is that self-care equals success. There's no such thing as wasting time going swimming or doing a morning routine. Like, that's actually building into your success. The way you begin each day will define how you live each day. That's what Robin Sharma said. So we talked in a Daily Bite about establishing a morning routine. I also have an evening routine. It usually involves sitting in the bath or going into the hot tub and putting oils on and brushing my teeth. And there's a routine that I do. It prepares my body. I shut down all access to any screens for at least an hour before bedtime so that it's not triggering the awake cycle in my brain, because the light from these devices will make your brain stay awake. So I go through an hour routine at least every night to kind of wind down and get myself ready for a good night's sleep. And I sleep all the way through the night. You're going to exercise every day because that's going to bring mental clarity and it will build motivation. You cannot serve others from a place of joy and ease if you're not living the life that you're selling, or if your own cup is empty, right? We don't want to be living from an empty cup. That's not very attractive to other people. Your lifestyle will sell. And so the more that you take care of yourself, the greater your attraction to your business is, or to what you're offering other people. It's always amazed me how many doctors or chiropractors have such poor health. I mean, they're overweight. They're clearly, not healthy. They're smoking or whatever, and yet they are trying to teach us about health. And so I feel like it's important that we live the message that we're trying to teach. So here's some cool tools that will be really helpful for you. So you can use an appointment scheduling tool. So this is a great way if you are having people make appointments with you. This is a good way to kind of manage that. It's called Schedule Once. Another one is Schedulista, Calend.ly, and then Square, which is the same tool that you use for getting payments through your phone. You can buy the little square, and you can run a card through it, or you can just run the the information through the app to take payment, that same app has a scheduling tool, which is really great, because if you need people to make appointments with you, for example, for, getting your nails done, or if they need to make an appointment for like a massage or whatever, you can use Square to book these appointments and to manage that whole system for you. And you don't even need a website in order to do it. So it's kind of good that way. You do pay for the service, but could be very worthwhile depending on your business. You could download meal planner apps. So one called Plan to Eat that costs $5 a month. I know that there's other ones out there that are free. As I mentioned, there's the Pomodoro timer tracker app. So that also is free. Google Calendar is free if you want to use an online calendar system. You can use Evernote for making lists and for tracking your ideas. Again, that's free. There are social media management. So if you want to put posts on social media, but you don't want to be in front of the computer all the time, you can actually just schedule a time in your day that you make the posts. For example, maybe once a week, you're going to spend 3 hours doing all of your social media posts for the entire week. And you would schedule when you want it to post. So you want this one to post Monday, this one Tuesday at noon, this one Thursday at 3 p.m., whatever. And you could do that through these social media tools. One's called Hootsuite and one's called Cinshare. There's other ones as well. But right now you can do it for free right within Facebook. So Facebook now enables you to schedule a post and time it for a time in the future. And you don't need an external program to do that. You can do it right within Facebook. Some books that were mentioned were Eat That Frog. I've also talked before about The Slight Edge. There's also Essentialism, First Things First, and The 1 Minute Manager. So all those are books that will help you with time management. Remember this, that tomorrow is a mystical land where 99% of all human productivity, motivation, and achievement is stored. So if we want to be effective, we don't want to put things off until tomorrow. I just finished watching the play Annie with my daughter and my son. We went to go see that downtown Toronto, and it's a wonderful play. And of course, her song is "Tomorrow, Tomorrow, I Love You, Tomorrow." But the reality is that she was saying it as a way of hope. She was talking about the fact that the sun will come out tomorrow, and so it was meant to be a message of hope. And yet, people often use now the song of tomorrow in their brains if they don't actually sing it, as that's when I'll do this stuff, and it becomes a tool of procrastination instead of one of hope. So be wise with your time, and it's going to pay off. So I'm going to just kind of flip over to Facebook and see if there's any questions. Let me just go there. So if you do have questions, I have some time to answer questions now. And you would just put it right on the live video. And I don't see any questions yet. The planner that I have, Ruth, is called, it's kind of frustrating because she's not going to be shipping to Canada anymore, but this was called by Anchored Press. It's called the Daily Devotional Planner. She's not going to be shipping to Canada anymore, and the shipping was kind of a bit of a nightmare. I ordered them for all of my front line. So I've actually been thinking about, creating a planner that we can use as Canadians that doesn't have all the American holidays and so on. But I really liked the planner. I know people do use Dough Planner. That's another one. I just liked this because it was bringing together, kind of my prayer time and my my time for putting intentionality into my day. So I really liked that aspect of it. But yeah, you can see if you can order from her. I'm not sure if it's still something that she's going to be sending out. Yeah, so the Dough Planner I know does help with different aspects of your business. There's a few of them that are like that. And the important thing is that you find something that works for you. I did a lot of research before I bought my planner, and some of them were, so highly rated, because I searched for top 10 planners for entrepreneurs, and the ones that were at the top, I would look at them and I'd think, oh, I don't like this at all. So the reality is you got to find one that really works with you. You missed me at Annie. Oh, really? At the merchant booth? Yeah, that's funny. I went to the merchant booth looking for something healthy to eat because we were starving, and it was like, oh, it's so awful. I don't know why you go to these events and all they have is like junk food. It's like, really, have we not kind of gotten beyond that? But anyway, that's my only disappointment. I loved the play. I'm glad that the information has been helpful. Yeah, implementing it today, exactly, not tomorrow. You're smart. A family planner. So are you planning for a family, Randall? A family planner, I'm not sure what you mean. I think maybe you mean like the big one. I used to have that. I would put it up on my wall, and it would be like, I think the one that I had was like a mom's planner. It had like stickers in it for all your different family activities. I think maybe you're talking more generally about coordinating your planners with your spouse. So for my husband's birthday, I bought him this journal. It's called A Life Well Lived. And again, the idea is that it brings intentionality into the day. There's messages that you can read. He doesn't have a lot of like scheduled things, so I really liked this for him because it gave him a place to put his priorities, a place to put his schedule, and then there's actually a place to do a bit of journaling. And so I got him that one. So we don't actually have coordinated schedules that way. We kind of just chat and talk to each other and say, what are you doing today? So that, but if you feel like it's helpful, I know that there's online ones that you can kind of coordinate schedules, and definitely possible to see what's going on. Like you said, exactly. If you do an overall planning calendar, so that could be helpful. For me, I guess what I feel like is I just need one place to put my stuff. And if I had to update other calendars, like even my personal assistant sends me a scheduler and she says, keep this updated so I know what you're up to. I never update it. It's kind of like, it's just too much. I'm just going to send her pictures from mine and say, here, this is what I'm doing. So I'm glad it's been helpful, Ruth. I'm really glad. Yeah, so if there's any other questions, feel free to put them here. And if you need some kind of elaboration on different tools, I'm happy to share that with you as well. The big thing you need to know is that when I hear a lot of people talk about time management, they're people who are like time management, like I said, they're either time management Nazis or time management gurus, and I always have been left feeling like, oh gosh, I suck at this, I'm not so good at this. But I realize I just have a different way of doing time management, but I do actually prioritize my time, and I've learned things from people, and I've incorporated those principles. But just know that your way of doing time management may look very different than mine, and that's okay. You just need to find something that's leading you toward your goals. I mean, I can't be that awful at time management considering I've got where I am. So I have to have some kind of natural ability, but at the same time, being more structured. One of the things I didn't talk about was the benefit of kind of grouping like activities. And so in my calendar, what I do for Monday and Tuesday is that's my day to focus on my team. I do my mentor calls that day. If I have team calls to do, I do it Monday and Tuesday. So those are my looking down days where I'm really focusing on my team. And then the rest of the days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm kind of looking out and I'm focusing on outward. So I'm not necessarily needing to be tied to home or tied to the computer. If I have other appointments, I'm probably going to do it Wednesday to Friday, and that's my business development days or my fun days, and then Saturday I usually do work. And why do I work Saturday? Well, because I often have big chunks of time that I take out on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to do different things. And so then I use Friday as somewhat of a catch-up day. I don't work the whole day by any stretch of the imagination. I just usually do a period of time, and then I'm out in the garden, and then Sunday I don't work. So, you got to find something that works for you, but I find that grouping like activities together is really important. In fact, if one of my team members misses their mentor call on a Monday or Tuesday and they want to reschedule it for a Thursday, I don't do that. I mean, unless it's absolutely necessary, I really don't, because I need to get beyond that focus of looking at my team and get my energy outward. It's just really important for me. So you're gonna have your own things that work for you, but structuring like activities together will help you with productivity. All right, well, it was great to connect with you. You can keep asking questions right on the post, and we'll see you again next week. Next week we are talking about, I can't even remember, what are we talking about next week? So next week we're doing Mastering the Art of Sales. Oh yeah, that's right. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I really am excited to share this with you. It's a training that I did with my, not with my team, but I had an in-person sales training event here at my house. I had like 14 people here. And I really, this is really coming from me. And as you're going to hear me share next week, you know, I felt originally when I was trying to teach on sales that I needed to become, you know, something very different. But then I realized, you know what, I've learned some stuff and I'm just going to teach it from what is most authentically me, what's been very effective for me. And I really hope that it's going to be a blessing to you. So I'll see you next week and enjoy the daily bites. Bye for now.